retaliation, if in any case there is a war and you have an alliance with the United States at ang United States ang nag-start ng war. So kaya yan isang malaking usapin na dapat pag-usapan ng mga Pilipino at maintindihan at magkaroon ng lesson sa nangyayari sa Middle East right now, and even kumbaga other events in history na makikita mo ang sitwasyon ng Pilipinas. Kumbaga may foresight ka kung ano mangyayari sa sitwasyon ng Pilipinas. So that is one indirect or a lesson that probably can be drawn sa nangyayari ngayon sa Gulf. On the other hand, when you talk about real danger sa Pilipinas, immediate and direct from that conflict in the Gulf, the war in the Gulf right now. First is energy. Yes, oil. Kapag tumaas ang prices ng oil sa international market, tataas sa atin, import dependent tayo, lahat ng bilihin tataas, kuryente tataas, ang pamasahe tataas, and it impacts the lives of Filipinos. Ang tanong, kakayanin ba ng gobyerno ni BBM since ang utang natin 17.5 trillion na, walang pera ang gobyerno, may corruption ka, ang daming problema, and it will cause inflation. A frontline state of the United States, especially under BBM, and you are part of what you call security and military network or architecture of the United States in the world. Kasi we're in the Indo-Pacific, but if you look at the security and military network of the United States, the Philippines is one of them. Because you have the EDCA sites na ngayon sinasabi ng ng National Security Council at ng AFP na hindi daw military bases ng US. Come on, give me a break. Sino bang nagbubulahan dito? Hindi po bobo ang mga Pilipino. At lalo naman ako, hindi ako bobo para hindi ko maintindihan that these are military bases. Kaya pwede ba? Magsabi tayo ng totoo para alam natin kung anong gagawin natin para sa bayan natin. Yun lang masasabi ko.
Prof, dagang salamat. Maraming salamat.
Dagang salamat. God
sa ulitin
bless.
po, ingat po kayo. Actually, hindi ito first time Meron ding mga nakalipas na ng mga buwan. Pero ito, medyo mas matindi po itong nangyari ngayon. Ano po ang basa nyo po rito?
Well, itong gulo na to, unang-una, gusto ko lang ipaalam sa ating mga kababayan na ito is unprovoked. Ibig sabihin, Iran did not provoke the United States to attack them. Wala silang ginawa for the United States to have a reason to attack them. Pero ang problema, ang sinasabi naman ng United States na kailangan daw nilang atakihin at pulburahin ang Iran dahil daw sa so-called nuclear program ng Iran at saka yung tinatawag mong intercontinental ballistic missile daw na dinidevelop ng Iran. That's their justification. But actually, according to Pentagon, there's no such thing and there's no evidence or it's not necessarily true na na may ganon ang Iran. Kasi as far as Pentagon is concerned, wala silang intel na may ganon nga. So that is one. So it's unprovoked. Second is walang sanction yan ng United Nations Security Council. So ibig sabihin, hindi siya authorized. It's a unilateral attack by the United States and Israel access. So yun yung totoo dyan. Kasi kahit ngayon, so far, yesterday, I think, my meeting sa United Security Council, and they're actually discussing this issue, especially the fact that it was not authorized by the UNSC, and at the same time, as far as major powers is concerned, like Russia, China, and even other countries, and right now, may balita na Malaysia is actually condemning the attack of US and Israel on Iran. This is an assault to the sovereignty of Iran as a country. However, nandun tayo sa ganitong reasoning ba? Pero ang nangyayari na since Saturday hanggang ngayon is tawag nito, gera na talaga. And the thing here is ang gera na to ay hindi na ito between Israel, Iran, US, Israel as against Iran. Makikita mo, this is already a war in the Gulf, and other Gulf states are now being dragged and involved. And I think Saudi Arabia, I'm not sure, but correct me if I'm wrong, kung ang Saudi Arabia declared already war on Iran. And also Iran is targeting U.S. facilities and U.S. bases. It's not only military bases, but U.S. facilities and assets spread across the Gulf the Gulf states, in the Gulf, So may ganun na nangyayari, and as you can see, since napatay ang kanilang supreme leader ng Iran, so right now ang dissent at saka yung galit ng mga tao sa loob ng Iran and even outside of Iran, na kung saan may pananampalataya ng the same na religion, kasi may sekta ang Islam, dalawa yan. So yung sekta ng Islam na kung saan yun ang religion ng Iran. Outside of Iran, may mga ganun din tulad sa Pakistan, tulad sa India, na makikita mo they're expressing their dissent at saka opposition at galit sa nangyari na namatay ang supreme leader ng Iran. Kaya makikita mo sa mga footages and even sa mga reports na inaatake din nila ang mga US facilities like US Embassy. So itong gera na to na nangyayari ngayon sa Gulf, the possibility of escalation, meaning a regional full-blown war, regional meaning even outside of the Gulf area, and Middle East na talaga, is possible. At saka, like me, sinusubaybayan ko siya, minomonitor ko, ang kinatatakutan ko is magkaroon ng spillover effect. Spillover effect meaning it will be outside of the region and other powers that are not, na hindi taga Middle East will get involved. Kasi Western Europe, like countries like France, like UK, these are allies of the United States. Even Japan said they are on the side of the United States. Australia said they're on the side of the United States. They're helping the United States also when you talk about intelligence, technology. So, and then you have also countries like Russia and China and even others, in the global south who are more sympathetic to Iran. So, ito yung mga possibilities na nandyan, but the reality is ongoing ang gera na ngayon, ang casualty, mataas na, may mga of course, may mga civilian casualties dyan, at saka ang tinatawag mong properties. Kasi, like for example, sa Dubai is a very nice and a very beautiful city. Pero kung titignan mo, marami na rin silang mga infrastructures na damage because of the bombing, because of the missile na pinapalabas ng Iran, targeting US facilities and US assets, let us say, in that area. Sa akin kasi, ang missile kasi ng Iran will not reach mainland US. Hindi kayang pumasok doon. Pero, kaya niyang i-destroy let us say, pumapasok siya sa Israel, pumapasok din siya sa mga karatig na bansa sa Gulf, na kung saan maraming military bases ang United States at may mga assets din sila. So far, yan ang nangyayari. Patuloy siya. May exchange of conventional warfare pa ito, mabuti na lang. Hindi ito, hopefully it will not escalate into something nuclear, which is sana naman wag, pero this is conventional war at the moment. Yeah.
Opo, Prof, may kahalintulad ba itong ganitong operasyon sa nakalipas din ng mga digmaan kahit sa ibang bansa? Ito ba'y magkahalintulad? Ba, yung sa ginawa sa Afghanistan, sa Iraq, Prof?
Sa akin kasi, ang pagbasa ko dito, in as far as the United States is concerned, ang kahalintulad nito or similarity sa mga cases ng Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria, especially Iraq, actually pati Latin America, let us say Iraq and Venezuela and even Libya. These are countries na kung saan invaded and United States waged war against this country and then they justify it na sinasabi nila, sa Iraq may massive weapon of mass destruction. So kailangan natin i-invade siya kasi that would be a detriment to America and to the American people. Pero after, wala namang pala. So they justify things unilaterally at saka violation of international law, a violation of sovereignty of another country by justifying on something hindi nag-exist. Pero dahil nga sila ang America, they just do it without care, kung maraming namatay, kung maraming casualties. Because there is one interest na makikita natin dito, ang United States. Kasi ang Israel will not have the confidence and even the military capacity without the United States. Karamihan ng military assets ng Israel ay nanggagaling sa United States. So ang big brother ng Israel is the United States. Kung hindi hahayaan ng United States ang Israel, hindi naman makakagalaw ang Israel. So it's really the United States. So kung titignan mo, isa sa mga interest ng United States is actually oil, energy, control of energy flow, energy system, and regime change. Bakit regime change? Precisely because if let us say ang mga countries na to like Iraq, ayaw niyang during the time of Saddam Hussein, as far as you can see, maybe other people would say many things against him, pero one thing, ayaw niyang maging under the control of the United States. At ang gusto niya, ang oil ng Iraq would be nationalized. In the same manner that Iran is, if you really trace the history, why there is what you call Islamic State, at nagkaroon ka ng Islamic Revolution in it's around 1959, 1953, it's precisely because there was a man who was actually the head of state, si Mossadegh. Sabi niya, the oil of Iran is for Iran. We will nationalize it. And the United States and the British, they don't like it. Because so, magkakaroon na, hindi yan corporate so mawalan sila ng control. So it's basically that. So right now it's the same thing. It's really all about oil, it's about energy control, and of course there's a geopolitics dimension to it with reference to China, because China has a lot of investment and a lot the Belt and Road Initiative is also some of the members of the many actually in the Gulf and even the Middle East are part of the Belt and Road Initiative. So in a way, the geopolitical dimension to that is with reference to China, but I think this is also more about oil and the control of energy and of course regime change. Kasi ang nawala at ang namatay na supreme leader is an as far as he is concerned, and even the whole of Iranian or majority of Iranian people, they want to be independent. They don't want to be subjugated by any foreign power, especially by the United States. So makikita mo, this is a classic playbook of the United States when it wants to wage war against another country na gusto nila makontrol ang resources, especially oil or some important resources for their economy and of course for corporate interests. And then the second one is regime change, kasi hindi mo makokontrol ang resources ng isang country or ang isang country kung hindi mo control ang leader. So of course regime change is on the table, and at the same time the geopolitical aspect is to contain China still, because China really has a lot of investment in that part of the world. And also if you look at Iran, number one buyer I think of Iran oil is China.
Opo, Prof, hindi ito first time na mangyari din na nagbago ng liderato din dyan sa Iran, no? And kumbaga merong una nung monarch, tapos pinalitan na ito. Actually magkakamag-anak na lang ito, no? Yung mga parents yata nitong mga existing na mga leader, pati yung opposition, yun yung namahala, yun din yung umalis, may nag-exile. Tapos ito nga po yung nangyari po. Meron ding nabanggit na kaya daw ginagawa ito ng Amerika kasi hundreds, based dito sa naging pahayag po ni President Donald Trump, marami na raw mga Amerikanong napatay, ang Iran, hundreds or thousands din po. Kumbaga, para sa kaalaman lang ng ating lahat, sa pagkakaalam nyo po, saan ba ito nag-ugat talaga, Prof? Kasi kung may problema ang isang bansa, kasi andyan yung may mga opposition talaga, may mga at may nababanggit, napapaulat din natin alam kung gaano ba ka-strong yung mismong mga Iranian mismo ang gusto ng pagbabago sa kanilang lugar or hinahype lang ito dahil may interest din itong mga nasa labas ng Iran dito sa issue na ito, at kumbaga justifiable ba na umaabot na sa ganito ang mga pangyayari sa Iran?
Unang-una, tawag nito, when you talk about Iran leadership at Iran as a state, one thing that we have to remember, it's not the normal state na tulad ng Pilipinas o tulad ng United States na pag nagpalit ka ng leader, hindi, kapag ni-regime change mo yung leader, halimbawa namatay, na magkukulaps ang system ng Iran. No, it's not. It's not like that. Because ang Iran is not is a religious, it's Islamic state. So, ang kanyang legitimacy as a state is nanggagaling, yung source no is nanggagaling sa religion nila. So there's such a thing as a religious ideology. So at the moment, since wala, namatay nga si ang supreme leader nila, I think there is an interim leader from what I know, based sa mga nababasa kong balita at news. And then I think they will have an election of the next. So magkakaroon yan, mayroon naman silang parang council that will elect. Pero if you think that just because namatay ang supreme leader, magkakaroon ng regime change really sa Iran, I think the American is misled on that or underestimating the cohesiveness of the Iranian system kasi hindi, yun nga ang sinasabi ko, the problem with the Americans is hindi nila naiintindihan ang countries like Iran is a civilizational state. And Iran is not even a secular state. It is a religious, Islamic Islamic state. On the other hand, of course, in any country, yung sinasabi mo, Admar, na may mga tinatawag kang opposition. Hindi naman nawawala yan. Pero one thing that you have to remember, ang mga opposition sa ay nanggagaling din dito sa mga tinatawag mong civil society that clamoring for democracy. And what is that democracy they're talking about? Of course, that is what you call the exportation of liberal democracy from the United States. Because sa Iran, mayroon din sila mga tinatawag mong civil society being funded by the likes of NED at CIA. Hindi naman, ano naman yan lahat ng tao sa mundo na nakakaintindi when it comes to this kind of things, alam nila na this kind of, movement na regime change, nagrarally against not everything is really genuine. Some of them are being funneled and funded by external forces like CIA. So, mayroon yan. Pero ang problema, ang nakikita ko, based sa, kanina kasi tinitignan ko yung profile ng tinatawag mong opposition ng Iran. These are fragmented. And these are not even a lot. Pero ang nangyayari, sa Western media, hina-highlight ito right now na sinasabi na nung namatay nung ang kanilang supreme leader, happy na ang mga Iranians. It's not true. There are people who are so-called coming from the civil society groups, quote-unquote, which many of them are funded by Western countries and especially by CIA front organization, you can see na, they're happy. But if you really look at Iran and the maybe a bigger population are really angry and mourning because their supreme leader died. That is really the fact. It's not even in Iran only, even in other parts of like for example in India, in Pakistan, talagang nagmo-mourn na dahil namatay nga ang leader ng Iran. So that's one. On the other hand, one thing that we have to remember, yung history nga ng Iran. In 1951, Iran elected, sabi ko nga kanina, yung isang leader na tinatawag, ang pangalan niya ay Mohammad Mossadegh. Isang lawyer siya. Nung naging leader na siya ng Iran, ang sabi nga niya, the oil of Iran should be for Iran. Because before he was elected in office as the leader of Iran, at that time, that was 1951, ang humahawak sa oil ng Iran ay mga British at Western countries. Sila ang kumikita. Imagine mo, 85% of the profit during that time hindi na pupunta sa Iranian, kundi na pupunta sa mga British companies and other Western companies na kung saan ang nag-ooperate sa oil ng Iran. So, nung ma-elect itong si Mohammad Mossadegh na lawyer, sinabi niya, we will nationalize ang control ng oil para ang profit ng oil nila would go to Iranians. So, nung mangyari yon, the CIA operated what you call Operation Ajax. Ito yung Operation Ajax by which itong si Mohammed na kulong, nagkaroon sila ng pro-Western leadership dun sa isang ang pangalan niya is siya, how do you call it? Nakalimutan yung pangalan, but that was a pro-Western leader na pumalit dun kay Mossadegh. However, in 1979, there was an Iranian revolution. At doon na na-create ang tinatawag mong Islamic Republic, which is very anti-American. That is actually the history. That's not even the whole history of Iran, but that is just the modern history of Iran from 1951. Kasi yun ang pinaka-importante. Paano mo i-connect right now yung nangyayari sa Iran? Why do you have the Islamic State na anti-American and don't want to be controlled by America? So from that point onward, ang Amerika ay galit na kay Iran dahil nga yung ang kanilang assertion that they're a state, they're independent, and they don't want to be controlled, and their oil and resources should be for them, hindi yan ang gusto ng katulad ng Amerika. So, yung history na yan is may kinalaman yan sa ngayon kung ano nangyayari ngayon. So, that is basically what happened. That's basically the background story. So, ngayon, well, when you talk about balance of power naman, you have to understand that Israel is part of the Middle East, the wider Middle East. So Iran is actually the only country that is one of the major country in Middle East that balances Israel. At laging natatakot ang Israel sa Iran precisely because Iran has the military capability to fight with Israel, especially if Israel will not be backed up by the United States. Mas malakas ang Iran when you talk about military capability. So ngayon, ito namang Israel, ang kanya talagang puntirya is Iran. So he wants to attack Iran kasi ang sinasabi din niya na Iran daw is a threat to Israel and to the Israelis, which is the same justification na ginagamit naman ngayon ni Trump na sinasabi niya Iran is a threat to the United States. Pero to be very frank with you, Admar, walang evidence and walang solid justification na sinasabi na maraming pinatay ang Iran or yung supreme leader ng Iran na mga Amerikano. I think it's the other way around. When you look at the history and you look at history of United States in its intervention in the Middle East. Pero syempre, when you talk about media and when you talk about optics, especially Western media, lagi nilang ito yung mga propaganda na lumalabas thus far.
Opo. Ito namang ganap po ngayon dahil lagpas na ito sa US, na malayong isla yung US eh. Ang malapit lang dito is Israel. Pero marami na pong mga bansa rin diyan po sa gitnang silangan ang nadadamay, like kagaya po diyan sa Abu Dhabi, no? Meron silang mga pagsabog na na-monitor diyan sa UAE or sa kanilang sentro na Abu Dhabi. Ganon din po sa Doha sa Qatar, no? Meron ding nababanggit na sa Oman dahil merong oil tanker doon na sinasabing inatake rin, no? Sa Kuwait, sinasabi rin nila na meron din mga pag-atake. In fact, meron pang mga report na nagkaroon ng friendly fire na yung dalawang jets ata ng Estados Unidos parang napabagsak ng Kuwaiti military, no?
I think it was not a friendly fire. Parang bumabagsak ang Amerikano. From the reports that I received from other sources, bumabagsak. Ang nag-report is Kuwait TV. Pero ang observation based doon sa footage na napanood ko, parang bumabagsak ang jet fighters F-15 I think ng US.
Opo, oo. At
So, yun.
opo, meron ding report dito nga na nagkaroon ng isinasabi nilang ang headlines kasi dito sa mga nababasa natin ng mga reports mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti Defense, sabi ng Central Command, no? So meron ding mga pati sa Bahrain nakaabot na rin, pati yung sa nadamay na rin yung pamosong Burj Khalifa ba yun? Dyan sa Dubai, no? Maraming mga lugar ang pati sa Qatar, no? Doha, Qatar, nabanggit na natin kanina. So itong
At saka tawag nito, right now Hezbollah is
Pati
is
sa
declared.
Lebanon, 'di ba? Nagkaroon din ng mga ano. So,
Hezbollah already declared they join the fray.
nakikita nyo po ba na kung magre-react itong mga bansa na napadpad din yung mga pag-atake ng Iran, mas malaki ang ano nito? Or anong basa nyo po rito dahil parang nag-overspill na ito, nagiging target na rin kung saan yung mga base militar ng mga allied countries, lalo na itong mga US, nagiging target ng Iran. Or, kasi marami din tayong naririnig na parang pinapatigil na nila, ganito, ganyan. Wala pang mga retaliation na nabanggit dito sa ating mga bansa po laban doon sa Iran.
I think ganito ang basa ko kasi dyan. And then it's not only my own perspective, I think. Kasi kanina minomonitor ko rin yung perspective ng mga taga doon, taga Gulf and taga Middle East na ini-interview din ng international media. And I also have some friends who are monitoring this situation. So nag-exchange din kami ng perspective at ano yung tingin namin. Hindi lang ako, kundi some friends. So ang tingin namin, kasi ganito yun, I think the Gulf states, especially yung tinitira ng Iran, yung mga US military assets, including US facilities dun sa mga countries na yun, like for example, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and let us say UAE, even these are parts of the Gulf na yung mga military assets and military basta US related na alam ng Iran na in many ways, it contributes to the capacity of the United States to attack Iran, tinitira ng Iran. So, of course, yung mga countries na to, like Saudi Arabia, nagagalit sila kasi nadadamay sila. Dahil nga, ang binabagsakan ng mga missile, yung soil nila, yung bayan nila. Siyempre, ikaw, nagagalit ka. However, these countries also understand that ang perception kasi ganito, ang sinasabi nga ng Iranian, yung mga military assets at saka military bases ng Amerika in these countries, it's not really, ang sinasabi, hindi pag-aari yan ng countries na yan. Ang may pag-aari niyan is kumbaga is the United States, and it is considered as United States territory. Yun ang perception kasi pag military base yan ng United States, it is considered as US territory. So kapag inatake mo siya, from the perception of the Iranian, we are attacking US territory or US asset. Hindi yung bansa mismo, let us say ng Qatar or let us say ng UAE. Ganun ang perspective eh. Kaya nga sinasabi ng general na nag-i-explain ng sitwasyon na to na it's not necessarily ang target nila yung country. It's the US asset which is considered as a US territory. So on that note, naiintindihan ng Gulf state ang what you call ang perspective or saan nanggagaling ang Iran. However, masakit din sa kanila kasi tumatama sa kanilang bayan at ang nadi-destroy at ang casualty na hindi lang economic, pati human casualty, and it affects everything, pati yung kanilang mga buildings, especially sa Dubai. Ang ganda-ganda ng Dubai at ng iba-ibang capital ng Gulf state na to, nasisira. And it will impact on their economy and also, of course, lives of people. So, madidisrupt din ang operation ng buong country. So, in a way, nagagalit sila. However, if you ask me kung magre-retaliate ang mga countries na to and then they will fire against Iran, that is a possibility. However, they also know the cost. Na kapag nag-retaliate sila, sasabog ang buong Middle East. So alam din yan ng mga leaders ng ang mga leaders ng Gulf states. Ngayon, makikita mo may mga sentimento nga ang let us say for example, I saw an interview ng isang Saudi official. Ang sinasabi niya, itong United States, ang iniisip lang nito is ang security at ang binaback up lang nito ay ang Israel. What about us? Nasa amin ang kanilang military bases pero they don't even care about us. So, if you listen to this kind of interview sa isang Saudi official, the Saudi Arabia is a major power in the Middle East, no? At saka it's an ally of the United States when you talk about security and military. Pero kung naririnig mo ito, makikita mo na itong mga Gulf state, may mga realization sila na ang nangyari sa kanila, ginamit sila as nandun kasi ang military bases nila, pero once they're being attacked by the adversary of the United States, wala silang magawa. Kasi kapag nag-retaliate din sila, itong mga Gulf state talaga, the whole of the Middle East, sasabog yan. And that is not what this Gulf state wants. Because if you really look at them, they really want peace and prosperity. Economic prosperity ang focus nila. That's why they are diversifying their relationship when you talk about economic with other major powers like China. That's why they are part of the Belt and Road. Kasi ang focus talaga ng Gulf state, even the whole of the Middle East, is to be prosperous and to be economically developed. Pero with this kind of situation, wala, tawag nito, that's a big problem. Kasi lahat ng ito may impact sa economy nila as a region, and it has an impact din sa world economy. So, kung titignan mo, if i-analyze mo siya, I think the possibility of retaliation from Gulf state against Iran is there. Pero I think the leaders of the Gulf state are also thinking hard. And, I hope they have the wisdom na they will refrain. Kasi ang mangyayari talaga dyan, it's a total war. It's not anymore. It will escalate into something na medyo mas mahirap i-contain. And then other countries and other major powers will be dragged into the fray. So, hopefully hindi mangyari yon, Admar, kasi nakakatakot yon kapag nangyari. Ngayon, ang makikita mo, ang war is basically Iran as against to US and Israel access. And Iran is targeting US military bases in different Gulf states na mayroong US military bases and US assets, even businesses. Pero hindi nagre-retaliate ang Gulf states. Pero once na makita mo mag-retaliate ang Gulf state sa Iran, Iran will be forced to all out. All out na talaga, as in do or die na. Ngayon kasi makikita mong Iran, medyo hindi pa siya nandun sa stage na all out. Though ang alam ko, ang sabi ng kanilang general na they will not agree to any kind of negotiation with the United States. Yun yung statement kanina. So, I'm not sure kung paano magkakaroon ng political solution or negotiation, kasi ang panawagan naman ng ibang countries sa mundo is de-escalation of the military conflict, ceasefire, and then protection of the civilians. Pero ang Iranian army or Iranian military, especially yung leader nila, nag-express na we will not negotiate with the United States. Yun ang sabi. So, medyo, how do you call that? Medyo, hindi pa natin alam kung paano ito, kung magiging matagal ba ang gera na to, or to certain extent, mag-stop siya in a matter of time or in a few days time. Mahirap yan tumagal. Kasi pag tumagal yan, problema yan ng buong mundo, hindi lang ng Middle East. Kasi ang mahirap dito, kasi if you really look at the Middle East, sila ang primary producer ng oil and other energy-related products. Makikita mo, top 3 I think ang Iran. Saudi Arabia is within top 5. Ang iba pang middle countries ay nasa top 10 ng oil-producing countries in the world, na kung saan nagsusupply ng energy across the world. So, and also you have to remember, yung trade, may dalawang area kasi ang Iran na kaya niyang i-control yung flow of international trade. Ang Strait of Hormuz and another one, napakalimutan yung pangalan, pero nasa Yemen na part. So pag yan, yung isa sinara na, yung Strait of Hormuz, yung isa hindi pa ata sinasara. Now pag sinara yun, magkakaroon ng problema ang flow of goods and trade, especially Europe will be affected. Geography-wise, kaya nga geopolitics eh. Kasi the geography of Iran gives an advantage to Iran, especially they can control two trade passage na yung Strait of Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Yung kasi ang hirap i-pronounce eh. And this is a route na trade, ang ano doon is passage of goods, passage of trade, na pag sinara din yon ng Iran, magkakaproblema talaga tayo magkakaroon tayo talaga ng global economic shocks. Hindi pa natin ngayon nararamdaman, pero actually, minomonitor ko ang prices of goods sa international market, nagsisimula na siya na tumaas. At ang mga countries like the Philippines na import dependent, especially in terms of oil and other goods, and also ang ginagamit nating tayo din hindi lang tayo import dependent of goods and oil. We have a lot of OFWs sa Middle East, especially sa Gulf. And then two things sa atin, OFW remittances, and then if in any case they need to be repatriated kasi tatagal ang gera, that would impact in terms of jobs kasi loss of jobs yan eh. So, and also of course lives kasi hindi natin alam, mayroon ng casualty na Pilipino sa Israel and we don't know kung sana naman wag nang magdagdagan yon. Hopefully not. So, yun.
Opo. Sa Pakistan naman, ang nangyari naman doon, walang mga pag-ataking nangyari, pero merong mga supporter ng Iran ang nagkaroon din ng kaguluhan doon. So nagkaroon na rin sila ng curfew. Sa report, lalo na dito sa Al Jazeera, meron na raw 24 na namatay dahil sa mga pro-Iran rallies na ito po. No? Prof, dito naman po sa itatagal, kakayanin ba ng pangmatagalan na pag-atake? Alam natin itong Israel, nitong mga nakalipas na buwan, sabi ko, ang yaman talaga ng Israel dahil di ko alam kung totoo ba yung mga nababasa ko na reports na sa bawat isang babagsak sa kanila na rocket or missile mula sa kanila mga kalaban, merong at least 3 na tagasalupo nun para at least hindi talaga makaano. And napakamahal pala ng kanilang mga ginagamit, no? So lalo na itong mga equipments or itong mga barko, mga jet fighters na gamit din ng Estados Unidos. Mahal pala itong pagbiyahe pa lang kasi lumapit na sila dito sa Middle East, no? Gamit yung kanilang mga carrier. Wala pang mga deployment pero as per dito naman kay Pete Hegseth ng Estados Unidos, hindi nila niro-rule out yung posibilidad na mag-deploy na rin sila ng mga tropa. So more on makabagong pamamaraan ng giyera muna ang kanilang ginagawa. Pero ang tanong dyan, tatagal ba ito and ano naman kaya ang nakikita nyo po na magiging komento rito ng Estados Unidos lalo na yung mga taxpayer nila na sasabihin saglit lang, ba't ang layo ng nangyari?
You have Hezbollah already getting into the parang involving itself in the war itself, which is on the side of Iran. It has also a lot of ammunition. If you really look at Hezbollah and you try to study this militia group, they also have a lot of weapons and especially lots of missile na they will fire it against the enemy of Iran. So makikita mo na ang labanan dito is endurance. And from geopolitical analysts and specialists that nakakausap ko and even pinapakinggan ko rin sa kanilang mga how do you call that, mga perspective dito kapag tinatanong sila, ang prediction nila mai-exhaust ang United States if this war will be prolonged. Mai-exhaust sila.
Opo.
But I don't think Iran will be exhausted in this regard. Though, hindi ko rin sinasabi na hindi magkakaroon ng casualty sa Iran. Of course, may casualty yan kasi binabomb din sila. Pero ang ano kasi dito, when you talk about this kind of war, you have to think, you have to look at Iran in the context that it is not fighting for buildings, it is fighting for something bigger, an idea and an ideology, and that is their, religion, yung ideology nila, and that ideology, you will not be able to bomb the ideology, idea, or religious belief. You cannot. So ang motivation ng Iran is nanggagaling doon, and you cannot exhaust this. So yun yung sinasabi ko rin kasi magkaiba ang motivation eh. Ang motivation ng Iran is to survive. So ang kanilang strategy is war of attrition. Yung strategy kasi ng United States is to subdue Iran na parang feeling nila when the supreme leader will die, na namatay na ngayon, magbabago na ang Iran and it will have a regime change and it will have a friendly United States leader. That is a miscalculation. Hindi nila naiintindihan ang Iran as a country and as a civilization. Because Iran is not necessarily a state. It is a civilizational state. Ang ano pa ng Iran, it is Islamic state. May religious connotation ka. And religion is a very strong force that would actually solidify and more, mas lalo magsusolidify ang Iran and its people, especially now that you have their supreme leader murdered and now a martyr. Ang ano pala, hindi lang pala ang supreme leader nila ang namatay. Pati pala asawa, sister-in-law, at I think anak na babae. So, if you really look at that optics, and if you're an Iranian, even if you're pro-democracy whatsoever, if you look at that optics, your nationalist sentiments will be awakened and you will really fight for your survival, not only as a country, but as a people. So,
Opo.
yun yung mga bagay na hindi nakikita ng western side of the world. And one thing though, yung sinasabi mo sa US, kung may mga opposition sa nangyari, I think there are a lot of oppositions in the United States, including American people. Kanina napanood ko yung rally ng Code Pink. It's a women-based organization who are against parang silang a civil society group or a civil society organization na ang kanilang advocacy is no to war. So nagkaroon ng rally ata, I don't know kung kanina or kahapon, na ang sinasabi nila na itong war na to under Trump is illegal. It does not have the permission of the Congress. So there was no congressional kumbaga permission. Kasi dapat kapag ang United States, if it wants to wage a war with another country, it has to have the approval of the Congress. Pero walang ganon. Unilateral din ang ginawa ni Trump without the approval of the Congress. So in a way, it's not accepted, legally speaking, and it's unconstitutional as far as Congress of US
Opo.
Congress is concerned. So may mga rallies din ngayon, may mga oppositions, and isa sa mga interesting na narinig ko dun sa rallies, sinasabi nga nila, if regime change is the key, dapat magkaroon muna ng regime change sa Amerika before magkaroon ng regime change sa ibang bansa.
Opo.
Yun yung very blatant and glaring na message dun sa rally ng Code Pink na maraming Americans din na nandun.
Opo.
At nakikibahagi sila at nagsasabi sila na they don't want this war. They don't want this war.
Prof, mabilisang dalawang tanong na lamang po natitira kasi si
sige lang.
Congressman Bong Suntay ay nasa na rin, nakaantabay na rin
Nasa linya na
sa
rin.
issue
Oo.
naman po yun ng impeachment kay VP Sara Duterte. Meron pa akong napanood kanina na isang interview din na analyst at sinasabi na parang naniniwala din ata daw ang Iran na hindi talaga sila mananalo dito sa laban na ito, lalo na nabanggit na rin ng ibang mga bansa na yung mga yung nadamay na nagkaroon ng drone attack, nabagsakan ng mga missiles din ng Iran, na hindi sila papayag, na hindi sila maghihiganti, at alam nila na alam daw ng Iran na hindi talaga sila mananalo dito sa sigalot na to, sa tension na ito. Pero parang meron daw silang paniniwala na alam namin hindi kami mananalo, pero may make sure namin na hihilahin din namin kayo pababa. Yun yung yun yung narinig ko kanina sa mga analyst din po.
Yung analyst yan,
Parang sa side siya ng sa Iran.
Amerika.
Hindi sa side naman ng parang sa side siya ng Iran. Binabasa niya na kumbaga alam daw ng Iran na hindi siya mananalo, lalo na kung magkampi-kampi ito sa mga pangyayari ngayon, pero i-make sure nila na kung babagsak man sila, magagapi man sila, i-make sure nila na talagang meron ding mababagsak doon sa kanilang mga kalaban na prof, no? And yung lawak ng epekto nito, Middle East, meron tayong at least 2 million na mga Pilipino po.
2 to 4 million.
2 to 4 million na mga Pilipino po doon registered or mga na lista tsaka hindi pa na rehistro. Kumbaga ang epekto po nito direkta sa ating bansa na meron na tayong problema sa issue ng korupsyon, namomroblema na tayo kahit wala pa siguro yung giyera sa Ukraine, medyo problema na rin natin yung sa ekonomiya, may politika din na problema tayo. Meron din tayong problema sa kapitbahay lang din na natin. And parang po pangatlo or basta nasa top 5 ang Middle East na remittances natin. Alam natin yung epekto niyan. Ano ang nakikita mo? Ito yung bagamat sinasabi po ng ating gobyerno na hindi, malayo lang yung ano natin, siguro yung sa langis lang natin. Pero sa nakikita nyo po, maliban sa langis, given na yan, pati na rin yung sa mga imported na mga inaangkat natin, ano pa ang nakikita nyo pong posibleng indirectly na epekto nito sa atin pong bansa, Prof?
Una, tungkol muna doon sa sinasabi mo na ang tawag nito, hindi mananalo ang Iran. One thing that you have to remember, walang mananalo sa kanila sa Gulf states, even Israel. It's not a win. It's a destruction of all countries in the Gulf. Kapag sumabog yan at nagtira-tirahan sila. So it's not really necessarily because Iran knows that it will not win. Actually, Iran is confident they can win. Yun nga ang ano because they even are confident na kaya nila. Pero ang tanong kasi dyan, kapag nagtirahan na lahat yan, Gulf State, andyan ang US, andyan ang Israel, titirahan na sila with all the militias na backing Iran and fighting for Iran, sasabog ang buong Middle East mo, which is the thing that we don't want. Because maybe it would be a prelude to a third world war because madadrag nga dyan ang major powers mo, the likes of Russia and others. Turkey is there as a major power as well. So it's not a simple thing of Iran winning and Iran losing. It's not Iran per se. It's a wider Middle East conflict na mangyayari. So that is much more the analysis that I can give. I don't agree with this kind of analysis na you analyze one country only as against the rest. No, it's not. It's not like that. On the other hand, yung sinasabi mo naman, since andyan na si Congressman Suntay, when you talk about real danger sa Pilipinas, ipinag-uusapan ito ngayon. Kasi first and foremost, you have EDCA sites. Ito nga sinasabi natin. Ang EDCA sites is, if you put the Philippines in the context of Bahrain, Qatar, and all of this, ito yun. Kaya nga sinasabi natin, we have to do away with military bases na hindi atin. Because it is a magnet for retaliation if in any case there is a war and you have an alliance with the United States at ang United States ang nag-start ng war. So kaya yan isang malaking usapin na dapat pag-usapan ng mga Pilipino at maintindihan at magkaroon ng lesson sa nangyayari sa Middle East right now and even other events in history na makikita mo ang sitwasyon ng Pilipinas, kumbaga may foresight ka kung ano mangyayari sa sitwasyon ng Pilipinas. So that is one indirect or a lesson that probably can be drawn sa nangyayari ngayon sa Gulf. On the other hand, when you talk about real danger sa Pilipinas, immediate and direct from that conflict in the Gulf, the war in the Gulf right now, first is energy. Yes, oil. Kapag tumaas ang prices ng oil sa international market, tataas sa atin, import dependent tayo, lahat ng bilihin tataas, kuryente tataas, ang pamasahe tataas, and it impacts the lives of Filipinos. Ang tanong, kakayanin ba ng gobyerno ni BBM since ang utang natin 17.5 trillion na, walang pera ang gobyerno, may corruption ka, ang daming problema, and it will cause inflation. And then buying of oil, it has an impact on the dollar, on the peso. Magkakaroon ka ng pressure on the peso kasi for the same amount of oil na i-import mo dahil mataas ang presyo sa international market, you need more peso because you need to convert the peso into dollar. So there is a pressure on the peso. That is another effect. Shipping. Maritime tayo eh. So sometimes ang shipping is part of our quote-unquote activity and economic activity. So that will be impacted kasi ngayon sarado ang ilang kumbaga ang ilang shipping lanes na napapasok doon sa Middle East. That's one. Another one is the business sector. Nagpa-fly. Mahirap ngayon ang daming areas sa Middle East na walang no-flight zone. Especially because may war ka. So that is a cost to business. Investment. Ngayon nakikita nila na like for example countries in the Gulf na may mga military bases and military assets, frontline states yan ng United States, especially in the context of war. Ngayon, nakikita nila, may EDCA sites. Oh my God. So if this is the case, probably I should not invest in the Philippines because maybe something happened and ang kawawa naman ng investment ko kung naging nagkataon. So that's another perception. Because one thing that you have to remember, perception is very important, especially when you talk about business. And another thing is remittances. Nagkakagulo ang Gulf. Marami tayong mga kababayan doon. So ang isa sa pinaka direct impact sa ekonomiya ng Pilipinas is what you call remittances ng OFW. And one thing that you have to remember, when you talk about GDP, 9%, more or less 9% of GDP is based on remittances ng ating mga Pilipino. The Gulf is isa sa mga areas sa buong mundo na malaki ang bultahe ng OFW na nagkakaroon tayo ng remittances. And remittances is a macroeconomic stability factor ng Pilipinas. Kapag yan na-cripple, pag tumagal ang war sa Middle East or nag-escalate ang war sa Middle East at tumagal, problemang malaki yan ng Pilipinas. Kasi malaking kawalan yan. On the other hand, vulnerability ng OFW, yung buhay nila, yung kanilang, kung i-repatriate mo sila o hindi, and then kapag nasa Pilipinas sila, na-repatriate, anong trabaho ang ibibigay mo dyan? That's still a problem of government and it's economic still. Then, financial stability nga dahil sa pressure on the peso. These are the direct impact on the economy. And look at the economy of the Philippines. Naghihikaos na po tayo. Naghihikaos ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Plus this one, na bago, ngayon lang. Then, ang tanong sa gobyerno ni BBM, ano ang gagawin mo at ano ang mitigating plan mo to make it sure na hindi siya mabigat para sa mga Pilipino. Kasi mabigat yan sa mga Pilipino eh. So yun yung matatawag mong direct impact and effect sa atin, sa bansa natin. However, yung indirect impact dyan is the perception that the Philippines is also a frontline state of the United States, especially under BBM. And you are part of what you call security and military network or architecture of the United States in the world. Kasi we're in the Indo-Pacific, but if you look at the security and military network of the United States, the Philippines is one of them. Because you have the EDCA sites. Na ngayon, sinasabi ng ng National Security Council at ng AFP na hindi daw military bases ng US. Come on, give me a break. Sino bang nagbubulahan dito? Hindi po bobo ang mga Pilipino. At lalo naman ako, hindi ako bobo para hindi ko maintindihan that these are military bases. Kaya pwede ba? Magsabi tayo ng totoo para alam natin kung anong gagawin natin para sa bayan natin. Yun lang masasabi ko.
Prof, dagang salamat. Maraming salamat.
Dagang salamat. God
sa ulitin
bless.
po, ingat po kayo.